Hello, my name is Garnet and welcome. In today's tutorial we will be creating this hat. It is made from the loop yarn. I have purchased mine at Joann's. It is called Loopity Loops. The color that I'm using right here is light gray. You'll also notice that in a previous video I created the double braided cable stitch scarf. It'll be a nice companion to go with this hat. This hat is made with 2 stitches in mine, a knit stitch and a purl stitch. And as on top, it has a nice little pom-pom. Come join me in the making of this hat. I'm sure it'll help keep you very warm during these cold days that are coming. The materials that we're going to use to make this loop yarn hat with is the Big Twist Loopity Loops in the color light gray and a pair of scissors. Another tool we will be using in the making of this hat is a large eye tapestry needle. When taking the measurement that you're going to need to go around the head, place a tape measure in this location just above the forehead and maybe above the ears, or can go around the ears. Now that you have an established head measurement, before we start to do anything, we need to have a weaving in end thread. So if you will take your loops and stretch them apart a little bit and try to see where that stitching line is right in between, and cut the loops. Please cut 3 of them, and this will give you a good length to use as a weaving in point. Alright, so we have a nice little tail. It's about 6 to 8 inches long. The size hat that goes around the head that I am making for is 22 inches. So I'm going to pull out my loops and I'm going to measure down with the 22 starting on the first loop where we cut the threads, and I'm going to pull it across, not stretching the loops but pulling it across till I get to the end. And this is my last loop right here. After you have found that last loop, take your string and stretch it just a little bit, and it'll help all the loops to settle down. There may be some places where you have to fiddle them around, but we want them all going in the same direction. Then we're going to create a circle. This is my last loop, and I'm going to take my yarn here and I'm going to go in between the loops and make an overhand knot, which basically is taking it and going around, kind of like you're going to tie a shoe for the first time. And we want to make it so that it's close to that loop that we're going to first use, because we don't want no real spacing in between it. And then go ahead and tighten it up. There we go. So now we have our circle with loops, our tail that we're going to weave in later, our working yarn that comes from our skein. So we're going to place it so that all our loops are now facing outward. We will be going in a circle. Since I'm right-handed, my yarn is going to be off to my left side. Now, to start with our hat, we're going to be making a kind of a line look garter stitch. So we're going to start off with the first stitch that's called the purl stitch. So to make our purl stitch, we're going to be taking our working yarn and bring it down towards us with the loops aiming outward like our loops in our foundation are. We're going to take our first loop and make sure it's the one that comes from where we tied it in. We're going to take that first loop and go through the loop that was on the bottom and pull it up. We're going to take our second loop, and this is our foundation loop. We're going to go through the center and pull it up. And we're going to continue this all the way around until we meet where our string is. Our string will help us to determine our stopping and starting of each row. So let me show you one more time. We're going to take our working yarn, which is on the top, and go through our foundation one, through the center, and pull it through. Continue around till you get to this one, which is right here by our tail. After completing this row, I have 28 loops. I encourage you that as you go around for the next few rows to know how many stitches you have in each row. So also at the end of each row, you really want to pull these loops out so that they do come out and lay flat and snug and you can see them, so that you don't overlook them, because sometimes it does happen. After we've completed the last row, we're going to do one more row of the purl stitch, and then we will start on our different stitch. So we're going to just continue on. We're going to take the working loop, because this is our last one, and we're just going to continue on into the first loop of that first row. So take your loop. We're still bringing it down here in front of us to make this purl stitch, and you can see how it creates these lines right here. Okay, so continue around and I'll meet you back here using this as our starting point. So I'll meet you here after however many stitches you need to make your hat. So now I'm going to sound like a broken record. Remember, at the end of your row to go double back and make sure that all your loops are pulled up as far as they can, and try not to have them twisted or anything. Please do that all the way around, and then we will go on to the next row. So what we want to do now is we want to make it so that the lines are going to be on the outside, and from now on we're going to kind of keep it ridged up just a little bit as we go around like this. So our next set of stitching that we're going to do, we're going to take our working yarn that goes to the skein, we're going to place it behind our work, and recognize which one is your last loop. For me, it's this one. You can tell because I have this line right here. So this is my next working loop, and what we're going to do is in our next loop, which is actually the first one of our next new row, because of our tail that helped us, we're going to go from behind and come up and pull it through. And we're going to do that to the rest of them like this for this whole row. This is called the knit stitch. So go ahead and take your next working loop right here and go into the next stitch, and you'll notice that it's going to create a whole new look. You'll see you'll have these two lines that go up, not a line that goes across. So let me show you one more time, and then you can go around, come up from the back through the center and pull your loop up. When you get to the end of your row, remember to pull it up so that the loops are at the end and will remain in place. Alright, we've completed this row. Please go around one more time with the same stitch as called the knit stitch. I'll see you at the other side. Please pause your video. Now for our next row, I hope you think that this is the fun part, because this is where we're going to start our stitch pattern, just for this row and possibly the next row. So we're going to take one loop and we're going to place it in the center between our two loops here, and then we're going to take the second loop and go through the loop. See, so we're adding a loop to this row, and when we come, before we complete this row, we will know what we're going to do, so or how it's going to look. So the next one, you want to place one loop in between the two loops here, and then the next loop goes into our stitch on the hat. So you see how we have one loop in between our loops here. So we're going to do this again. One more loop, and our next loop goes into our loop of the hat. Continue with this around. We are increasing, so for the 28 stitches, that'll give me 56 when I'm completed, but don't worry, we're not making the hat bigger. We're just adding a stitch pattern. So continue all the way around until you get to where you have added the last one and inserted into the last one, and I'll show you what we're going to go from there. Now at the end of this row, make sure you pull your loops that are into the hat portion. Oops, I forgot one. Oh, here it is. Pull it all up tight, and then I'll show you what to do next. Now we will not be using our working yarn. We're going to be using the loops that are in between these other loops here. So take the in between loops, and we're going to do as if it was the cast off method. We're going to take the loop on the left and bring it through to the loop on the right, and it's going to make a little chain look going this direction. So you can see how your next loop here, and then you got your in-between loop, so we want to bring it through the next loop. We want to keep our loops on our hat going upward. So here's our next loop that goes up, and sometimes those in-between loops, as you went around, flip to the back, so make sure you can find them. Now if you don't find one, you're gonna have to undo your row. Sorry. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to create this braid look going around, and you want to make sure you have your one that goes in the hat and the one that goes in between, and go through that loop right there. So go ahead and do that all the way around, and I'll meet you back over here and show you how to finish that part off. Alright, so as you can tell with my tail here, I'm at the beginning, and this is the last loop for that particular row. And this is our loop that goes over here. So we're going to take the next working loop and we're going to go through that loop. Then we're going to take this loop that we just, this working loop, so that we can finish this braid here, and we're going to come down here and go through the beginning of that first braid. I know it looks kind of cumbersome, doesn't it? And then we're going to pull it up, and it's going to be part of the first stitch on the next row. So you can see how we have this braid go around. Now, even though this is going to come up, it'll be okay. So you want to take your next, on your working yarn, here's our working yarn here, the next loop, and you're going to go through both loops. Okay, now it'll blend in, it really won't be that noticeable, but we have our nice little braid that goes around our hat. So let's continue on with our stockinette stitch. We're going to do this one more row, and then we're going to start our decreasing. So from the back to the front, make sure you count your stitches. I have 28, so I'm going to make sure that I have 28 at the end of my row, and then I will go ahead and make sure my stitches are straight, and we will start our decrease row. So to start decreasing, we're going to take 2 loops and bring them together. And as you can tell, we've already decreased it by 1. Our next stitch will be just the 1 stitch. Okay, and then the next stitch will be 2 loops from the hat together, and you bring your working yarn loop through the center of both of them. And we're still doing our knit stitch. And then the next stitch will just be 1. So we're going to decrease whatever number we have by half. If you get to the end and you find that you have maybe 1 stitch or 2 stitches, go ahead and see if you can decrease it so that you can have half on the greater side of the number. Say like if you had 17 stitches that are left when you could have had 16 or whatever, that'll still work as well. So go ahead and let's do our decreases this row, and go ahead and pause your video. So as you can see, this is the top of my hat. It is already smaller than the bottom. So we will have a couple or more rows. We're going to make this more like a beanie kind of hat, and then we will be completed. So starting our new row, see, here's my tail. So I will be starting my new row. I will start with my first 2 and I will join them together, and then my next stitch I will do just 1. We will do the same thing as we did the last row, 2 joined together and then 1 all the way around. Well, our little hole's getting a lot smaller, so this time around we're going to go ahead and do 2 stitches for each loop. So on our working, we're going to take 2 loops from the hat and place 1 working loop through there. Okay, so 2, and the next loop, 1 working loop. Make sure you pull these guys up tight, and then we're almost finished with our hat. Continue around. So at the end of my row, I have 6 loops. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back 4 loops this time, and I'm going to get my scissors and I'm going to cut it. And as we've done before, we're going to cut our loops open, making sure they're not twisted. I've cut them before where they were accidentally twisted and I couldn't tell because of the little fluff. It was I had to start in a new location. Okay, so we're going to take our string right here and we're going to go through each one of our loops, going from the bottom up. So it'd be kind of like a little whip stitch. See, from the bottom up. And when we get there, we want to pull it a little snug. And then we're going to, at the opening, pull it through into our center. Okay, then we're going to take our loop and go under one of these other loops. We're going to use that as a place where we can start to make a knot, and go under that loop one more time and make your overhand knot. And I'm going to do it one more time, and this finishes our section of that hat. I'll go ahead and cut that. And for the outside here, we're going to take this and come under and go back to where we first started here. I'm going to wrap around it a couple of times. There we go. So that helps it to blend in and make it look like a straight line. At this time, you'll want to pull out your tapestry needle. To thread your tapestry needle, place your yarn between your fingers like this and bring it up and pull it tight and try to move the fur out of the way some. Then take the eye of the needle and work it over that folded part of the yarn. If you try to squeeze it on the other side, you may get lucky, but sometimes it has a tendency to fray. So we're going to go back to the inside part, the inside part of our hat, and we're going to go over and under and over and under and come through. And then we're going to go over that last stitch, under, over, under, and pull it through as again. Now this time we're going to work our way up and that'll help bring it up inside the hat. Okay, and our hat is complete. And I'm going to show you my version of a small pom-pom that we can put on the top using loop yarn. So to make our pom-pom, we're going to take and cut the 3 loops here so we can have something to hold our little pom-pom down with. Alright. And then take the ends and wrap it around 2 or 3 fingers, trying to keep all your loops going in the same direction. We're going to wrap it 3 times. So there's 1 time, here's 2 times, and here's the 3rd one. Like I said, sometimes it's hard. These little loops want to have a mind of their own. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and cut our yarn back here and cut these loops apart. Go ahead, I'm gonna turn my camera off, but go ahead and cut the last 3 loops. I had to rethread my fingers, sorry. So I'm going to take these strings that here at the end, and I'm going to go through the center with our ties, and I'm going to wrap it around. Just this one time. And then take the other tie and place a square knot onto it. And this will hold the loop. Okay, then we want to go to the other side. So if you separate what looks like about half, go to the other side, wrap it around, and then pull it together, and then place another square knot. Okay. And here we have just a very simple little pom-pom. Let's attach it to our hat. I see an overload of cuteness already. So we're going to take the one strand, and we're going to go in between, you know, here's the center right up here, so we're going to go in between and just pull that tail into the center. And then we're going to go across. See, we went in here, so we're just going to go across the hole that we have in the center and take the other tail and go through to the other side. So here's our two tails. We want to make sure our pom-pom is on there tight. And we're going to place a square knot on it. Right over left, left over right. Now if you want, you can add a little extra security. Now because this is inside the hat, I'm not too worried about the excess. And here I'm going to cut off my other one that I didn't cut from before. And any other, here we go, one more. And our little hat is complete. Here's the sides. Here's the separation headed towards the top, and here's our little pom-pom. So I want to tell you thank you so much for working with me on this tutorial. I hope you enjoy this hat for this cold days that are coming up, and it'll go well with our little scarf, the double braided cable scarf. I hope you give a chance to make this and give it as a gift, and maybe make the scarf as well as a set for yourself. Thank you for watching. I hope you come back for another tutorial. My name is Garnet, and I'm glad you came to visit me today. Have a great day and happy crocheting, and in this case happy loop knitting with Loopity Loops loop yarn. Bye-bye.